let's get on to this cricket situation right away. I'm delighted that TalkSPORT's cricket editor John Norman has joined us in studio. So, John, obviously there is much for us to get into here. Good morning to you.
Yeah, well, we're not really good morning, is it? So.
It's not really, not for the sport that you cover here at TalkSPORT, John. You have been doing for 10, 15 years plus. A new report has found that cricket in England and Wales is rife with elitism, sexism, racism, to which the ECB have offered an unreserved apology. Let's look at it. Ethnic minority cricketers have regularly experienced discrimination within the sport. Working class people, especially in inner cities, are often denied any access to cricket, and public schools have a huge hold over it. On that basis, the report recommends that the MCC should scrap the annual fixtures between Eton and Harrow, as well as Oxford and Cambridge at Lord's. And as well as all that, the report has found there is a prevalent culture of sexism in cricket, with women hugely underrepresented in positions of power. Before we get to John, the ECB, in the form of their chairman, Richard Thompson, has already stepped up to say sorry.
Today's report is a wake-up call for cricket. We must never again exclude anyone on the basis of their ethnicity, gender or social background. On behalf of the ECB and wider leadership of the game, I apologise to anyone who's ever been excluded from cricket or made to feel like they don't belong. Cricket should be a game for everyone, and this has not always been the case, and we are truly sorry. When the ECB commissioned this report 2 years ago, we wanted to gather evidence from across the game to truly understand the challenges that cricket needed to address. It is the first and most comprehensive report of its kind in any sport, and we're determined to use these learnings to great effect. This report makes clear that historical structures and systems have failed to prevent discrimination. The ECB will use this moment to reset our sport, going much further than previous efforts. Cricket has made mistakes and let people down. Now is the time for the sport to come together to stamp out discrimination and to make cricket the most inclusive sport in England and Wales.
So that was Richard Thompson of the ECB, chairman, speaking a short time ago, apologising for the findings of this report, which, John Norman, I would suggest, are particularly damaging to the sport, aren't they?
Well, yes, I'd say so. I mean, where do you want to begin? Do you want to begin with the elitism? Do you want to begin with the sexism? Or do you want to begin with the racism?
I mean, did you think it would be as bad as it is, John? It makes dreadful reading, doesn't it?
Excuse me. Richard Gould was speaking yesterday from the ECB. The CEO, he was asked whether he was shocked by the findings. He said he wasn't shocked. And to be honest with you, I'm not particularly shocked either. I have been shocked over the last few years. I suppose we were all expecting something like what we read and have been reading. It's a long, lengthy, detailed document that's taken 2.5 years to compile, 317 pages. Shocked, no. Saddened, yes. I suppose some of the individual experiences, which I'm reading for the first time, have shocked me to read in print. You know, how...
Anything specifically?
Asian players being called terrorists on the field of play. And when they've complained, nothing has happened on the field. When the complaint was taken to the chair of the opposing team, they were accused of defaming the club. Just little moments like that. Black players racially abused on the field. I don't think I'm actually allowed to quote what's in there, so I won't. But essentially racism. So yeah, that's shocking to read that in print. You know, that certainly brings it home, makes it more individual. It's easy to get lost in all the stats, I suppose, and it's a depth of stats as well. But there are certain stats that do jump out from the page. But yeah, there's a lot to go through.
John, kick it out. Tony Burnett is somebody we speak to on a regular basis when there are topics like this that emerge in football. Kick it out, doing some work now in cricket, and Tony Burnett joins us live. Tony, good morning to you. So the sport of cricket has big problems, it would appear, Tony, and you and other organisations now are going to presumably turn your attention to those.
Ideally, Jim. Yeah, morning, gents.
Good morning.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a pivotal moment, actually, and the evidence is now out there. I have to say, it's not obviously new news to us because we've been working with key stakeholders and people like Michael Carberry over the last 18 months to try and understand what's been happening. But I'm really pleased, actually, and we're really pleased that all the evidence appears to have come out in the way it has. And so the case for change is unequivocal. So we are keen now to kind of, I suppose, speak to the ECB, work with the ECB to make sure that whatever plans are put in place are the right plans to drive the changes we all want to see. It's about solutions now. How do we take this forward and make things better?
I mean, Tony, we've got a kind of cocktail here, none of which is any good to anyone. Elitism, sexism, racism. What do you think needs to be prioritised here? I mean, how do they begin, the ECB, to even think of tackling this in a way that's going to bring change?
I think some of this stuff is about culture and culture change, and that's the bit that's going to take time, and that's the bit that's going to take real concerted effort over a number of years. Some of this stuff actually is just about appropriate systems, and I don't mean that to try and sound simplistic. So when we've got a reporting process around discrimination that doesn't work, that people don't trust, that people don't use, we can do work to fix that because we've got experience around it. But when you talk about the access to the talent pathways, for example, and the influence of private schools, the likelihood of 57% of our most elite players have gone through the private school system. And again, that's stuff that Michael and Tom have been talking to us about for 18 months. Unpicking that structure and rebuilding a talent pathway infrastructure is going to be a really interesting and systemic challenge, and it's going to require concerted effort, but also investment. That's not going to be a cheap thing to solve.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.